I've spent most of my life afraid of dinner tables. It sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but anyone with a severe allergy understands. One wrong meal, one wrong smudge on a cutting board, one wrong assumption, and that's it. No dramatic music, no warning shot, just a tightening in the throat and the quiet realization that you might not see tomorrow. I learned that lesson at 8 years old, sitting on my grandmother's couch while my parents screamed into the phone for an ambulance. Since then, I've carried an EpiPen everywhere. I read labels like contracts. I don't touch food I didn't watch being made. And I don't take risks I can't afford to. I wish that was the part that people struggled to understand. But what they really struggle with is this. My allergy doesn't look dramatic until it's too late. I don't break out in hives like in movies. I don't instantly collapse. It starts silently. A weird taste, heat in the face, the sense that the air suddenly got thin. And by the time anyone else notices, I'm already fighting for breath. That's why when I started my job 3 years ago, I made sure everyone knew. Not in a dramatic way. Just a simple heads up at lunch. Hey, I can't have peanuts. Not even traces. Just so you all know. Most people nodded. Some asked polite questions. One coworker even wrote it down to remember. And then there was Megan. Megan laughed. Not mean at first, just dismissive. Oh, come on. Everyone has an allergy these days. Her favorite air quotes hung in the air like an accusation. She was loud, confident. The kind of person who believes her opinions are facts simply because she said them out loud. People laughed at her jokes. Managers liked her energy. She liked being the center of attention, and she knew how to keep it. And she decided early on that I was the dramatic allergy guy. For months, she made comments. Are you sure it's real? You don't look allergic. I bet a little won't kill you. I shrugged it off. You get used to this weird mix of ignorance and ego, but it wears you down, drip by drip, joke by joke, until you stop eating with the team and start bringing food you can microwave with the door closed. Then came the corporate dinner. It was supposed to be something simple, a team-building thing because our department had hit some quarterly numbers. A nice restaurant, long table, everyone slightly overdressed. I went because the new HR director insisted all full-time employees attend. I figured I'd stick to something safe, speak up clearly about my allergy and leave early. But Megan saw it as a stage. She showed up in a bright red dress that demanded attention and immediately started making jokes about finally getting the allergy guy to eat normal food. She said it loud enough that the table laughed, not because it was funny, but because Megan expected them to. I ignored her. I always do. The restaurant was nice. White tablecloths, warm lighting, an open kitchen you could see from the dining room. The waiter came over and I explained my allergy. Slowly, clearly, calmly. I watched him write it down in big letters. He nodded and said he'd speak directly to the chef. Everything seemed normal, quiet, safe. But later that evening I caught Megan watching me with this strange smile. Like she knew something I didn't. Like she was waiting for a punchline. I brushed it off. I shouldn't have. When our orders arrived, she leaned over slightly, swirling her wine, and said, "You're gonna love this. I made sure it's extra special for you." Her tone sounded like a joke. A stupid, unfunny Megan joke. But for the first time in months, something in her voice wasn't playful. It was triumphant. I felt the hair on my arms rise. I couldn't explain why. Nothing looked wrong. Nothing smelled wrong. The dish was one I'd ordered safely dozens of times before. Grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, rice, clean, simple, usually safe. Megan took a sip of wine, still smiling at me. And the worst part? She looked proud. I didn't know it yet, but that smile was the start of something I wouldn't fully understand until much, much later. I wish I had walked away. I wish I had trusted the feeling in my gut. Instead, I picked up my fork, and as I lifted the first bite toward my mouth, she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Go on, don't be dramatic." That was the moment everything started to slide toward the edge. I didn't put the fork in my mouth right away. That's the part I keep coming back to. For a full second, maybe two, I hesitated with the food inches from my face, staring at Megan over the edge of my plate. She raised her eyebrows like I was being dramatic again. But that was just the beginning. Relax, she said under her breath, lips barely moving. It's just chicken. On the surface, the night looked normal. The whole team was there, plus a couple of managers and the new HR director, a guy named Lewis who'd started 2 weeks earlier. He'd been introduced over email as here to modernize our processes, which usually means here to clean up messes. He sat near the middle of the table, listening more than talking, asking people about their roles, learning names. I remember thinking he looked tired, the kind of tired you only get from dealing with other people's problems for years. Megan, of course, had planted herself near him. She was in full performance mode, laughing loud, leaning in too close, telling stories that somehow always came back to how wild she used to be in college and how boring everyone else was now. And then there was me, the alleged boring one, at the far end of the table, directly across from her. She had a perfect line of sight to my plate. The waiter had done everything right. He'd come to me first when it was time to order. I'd told him firmly, calmly, that I had a severe peanut allergy. Not, I get itchy, not, I don't like them. Severe. No peanuts. No peanut oil. No, may contain. No, we can't guarantee. He'd nodded, written peanut allergy in all caps, and repeated it back to me in front of half the table. He'd said he'd speak to the chef personally. I watched him walk straight to the kitchen, ticket in hand. That's what made Megan's little comment feel so wrong. She swirled her wine again, watching me over the rim of the glass, like this was some kind of private experiment. You look nervous, she teased. It's fine, Grant. They know what they're doing. Yeah, I said slowly. I'm sure they do. I set the fork down. Across from me, Jason, one of the quieter guys on our team, glanced between us. He knew about my allergy. He'd seen me wipe down a shared table before eating. He'd seen me skip cake at office birthdays. His eyes flicked to Megan, then to my plate. What did you mean, extra special? He asked her, half joking, half not. Megan smiled too fast. Oh my God, calm down. I just meant I talked to the waiter. I told him we have a picky eater. She rolled her eyes. Apparently you have to sign a blood oath to get anything normal these days. The joke didn't land the way she wanted. A couple of people gave those polite, uncertain laughs that people use when they're not sure if it's okay. Lewis, the HR director, looked up from his conversation and watched us for a moment. He didn't say anything. He just observed. Did you say anything about peanuts? I asked, keeping my voice level. She scoffed. No. Why would I? That's your thing. My thing, I repeated, is not dying at team dinners. Something shifted at the table. The noise from the other end faded a little as people went quiet around us. Megan hates silence when she doesn't control it. Her smile tightened. Grant, seriously, she said. You always act like I'm out to get you or something. I just wanted you to stop acting like every menu is a war zone. It kind of is for me, I said. That's the point. For the first time that night, she looked annoyed. Not amused, not faux offended for laughs. Genuinely irritated. You know what? She said, voice dropping. Some of us think you like the attention. You always have a story. You always make the waiter do this whole ritual. It's not that hard to just eat like a normal person. That's enough, Jason muttered under his breath. And that was the first small shift inside me. That night, I stopped being the one who brushed it off. I felt something solid in my chest, like a door quietly clicking shut. Here's the thing, Megan, I said quietly. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to understand it. You just have to not interfere with it. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The moment stretched. Food's getting cold, she finally said, like she was ending the argument. Just eat. You'll be fine. I wish I could tell you I stood up, thanked everyone, and left. I wish I could say I followed my instincts, but I was tired. Tired of being the sensitive one, the cautious one, the guy who ruined vibes with safety talks. So I did what people pleasers do. I tried to prove I wasn't dramatic. I picked up the fork. The first bite was small. I pressed the chicken with my tongue, testing the texture, the taste. At first, nothing seemed off. Grilled, a little smoky, a hint of lemon, normal, I swallowed. Conversation flowed around me again. People laughed at some story 3 seats down. The waiter refilled water. Silverware clinked softly against plates. Then I took the second bite. This time there was an aftertaste. Subtle. Nutty. The kind of thing you might not notice if you weren't trained by fear to detect it. My stomach dropped. People imagine that. In that moment, you panic and start screaming. You don't. Your brain does this weird thing where it tries to bargain with reality. Maybe it's just the sauce. Maybe they use some kind of seed oil. Maybe I'm imagining it. I set the fork down again and pressed my tongue against the roof of my mouth, tasting the residue. That nutty aftertaste didn't go away. It bloomed. My heart started beating harder, not faster, just heavier. Like each beat was being counted. I glanced up. Megan was watching me, not talking, not laughing anymore, watching. The way someone watches a slot machine after feeding it coins. "You okay?" Jason asked quietly. "I don't know yet," I answered. I reached for my water, took a sip, swished it around my mouth, swallowed. It didn't help. If anything, it just spread the taste. My lips tingled. A familiar warmth crept up my neck. "Grant?" Lewis's voice came from a few seats down. "Everything all right?" I nodded automatically because that's what you do when the room suddenly feels like it's leaning. You pretend it's straight. "I think—" I started, then stopped. My throat felt thicker than it had a minute ago. Not closed, not yet. Just, padded. I pushed my chair back. The noise at the table dimmed. Someone turned in their seat. Someone else put down their fork. I could feel eyes on me like heat. "I need to check something," I said, my voice a little rougher. "Excuse me." I stood up slowly. The room swayed, then steadied. My hands were shaking, but that's normal. Adrenaline does that. As I stepped away from the table, Megan spoke up behind me, too loud. "Oh my God, are you serious right now? You had one bite?" I turned back to look at her. Her face said, "Annoyed coworker." Her eyes said this wasn't supposed to happen. That's when the itch started, deep in the back of my throat, like someone had taken sandpaper to it. I reached into my pocket and wrapped my fingers around my EpiPen. I hadn't used one in years. I'd hoped I never would again. "Grant?" Lewis stood now, too. "Do you need an ambulance?" The itch sharpened into a burn. My chest tightened just a little, like the room had shrunk 1/2 inch in every direction. I looked at the half-eaten chicken on my plate. I looked at Megan's suddenly pale face. I felt my airway narrowing by millimeters. "I think," I said slowly, forcing each word out through the thickening in my throat. "Someone put peanuts in my food." Nobody laughed this time, and as the first real wave of heat rushed through my body, I understood 2 things at once, with horrible clarity. 1, this wasn't an accident. 2, I might not make it to the end of the night. The thing about anaphylaxis is that it doesn't start with chaos. It starts with silence, the kind that means something's gone wrong, and then your body begins to speak in ways you can't ignore. The heat spreading through my chest wasn't panic. It was chemical, mechanical, a switch being flipped inside me without permission. My breathing shortened, not enough to alarm a stranger, but enough that I knew. My skin prickled along my jawline. My tongue felt too big for my mouth. I gripped the edge of the table. "Grant!" Lewis's voice cut through the blur, controlled, calm. "Sit down. Don't move." "I need air," I managed, but the words came out like they were coated in wool. Someone stood. Someone else gasped. Chairs scraped. The edges of my vision began to vignette, a dark halo tightening like a camera lens. "Where's your EpiPen?" Lewis asked. "Pocket." My voice cracked on the second syllable. He reached forward with steady hands, pulled it out, and looked me dead in the eyes. Do I administer it? I nodded. I didn't trust myself not to miss. He didn't hesitate. Jab, click, rush. My leg seized around the injection, the muscle clamping tight. The adrenaline burned cold through my veins, but here's the part most people don't understand. The EpiPen isn't a cure, it's a timer. It buys minutes, maybe. My throat didn't fully open, it just stopped getting worse. That's when the shaking began. Hard, involuntary tremors, like electrical pulses under my skin. Call 911, Lewis ordered, and someone did. I could hear the clipped panic in their voice, the way they stumbled on the words anaphylactic shock. The waiter appeared, wide-eyed. What's happening? Is he choking? He didn't say, Get the chef, Lewis snapped. Not loudly, but with a tone that meant movement. I tried to speak. No sound came out. The world shrank to small details. The cold sweat on my palms. Jason's hand on my back. The metallic taste in my mouth. Megan's breathing fast and shallow across the table. Yes, I heard her breathing. She was shaking. She knew. The manager rushed over, words tumbling out. He said peanut allergy. We noted it. We prepared separately. I don't understand. Lewis pointed at my plate. Don't touch it. No one touches a thing. Oh, the restaurant wasn't loud anymore. Conversations had died. Forks hung in midair. A couple at a nearby table stared with horrified sympathy. Someone whispered, "Oh God." I leaned forward, trying to force air down my throat. My airway felt like it was wrapped in coarse fabric. My chest rose fast, but fell slow, the kind of breathing that means you're losing ground. Stay with me, Grant, Jason said, gripping my shoulder harder. Hey, look at me. I tried, then a new voice cut through the room. Sharp, controlled, professional. What was in that dish? Everyone turned. The HR director wasn't talking to me. He was looking at the chef, who had just arrived from the kitchen, confusion written across his face. It was the standard grilled chicken, the chef said. No peanut oil, no cross-contamination. I triple-checked the ingredients. We take allergies seriously. He turned toward Megan, slowly, deliberately. She came into the kitchen earlier. She said she was coordinating the menu. A ripple went through the room. I lifted my head toward her. Even through the fog, even through the adrenaline, I caught it. That flicker of guilt on her face. What? Jason asked, incredulous. She walked in with a small container, the chef continued, brows knit in confusion. A spice mix, she said. Told me to add just a touch to the grilled chicken dish. Said it was for a seasoning preference. Megan's face drained of color. That's enough, she blurted. It was just seasoning. It wasn't... I didn't... He's exaggerating, like always. He's turning blue? Jason snapped. Shut up. Lewis looked at the chef. Was there peanut in that mix? I don't know. She brought it, the chef said. It wasn't ours. Everyone stared at her. Megan opened her mouth, closed it, looked around in a wild, desperate circle. I thought. He always makes such a big deal. You guys saw. He took 2 bites before acting. How was I supposed to know? You added something to someone's food, Lewis said, voice low and sharp. Do you understand that this is not a prank? Yeah, this is assault. Megan shook her head fast. I wasn't trying to... I thought he was lying. You thought wrong, Lewis replied coldly. The room spun again. My breathing constricted in a sudden, brutal squeeze. I coughed, once, twice, and felt the terrifying tightness clamp around my throat like a fist. That's enough. We're moving, Lewis said. Jason and the waiter helped lift me under the arms. My legs buckled, barely functioning, my vision strobed. Dark, light, dark. The restaurant doors burst open and cold air hit my face like a slap. Sirens wailed somewhere close. My hearing muffled, then surged, then muffled again, the world coming in patches. As the EMTs rushed me onto the gurney, someone yelled from behind us, Is he going to be okay? The EMT didn't look up as he answered. We won't know until the meds kick in. Mask, strap, needle, pressure. voices overlapping, questions I couldn't answer. Then darkness folded over me like a heavy blanket. I woke up in a hospital bed with a stiff throat, burning muscles, and the strange metallic taste of IV steroids. The lights were dim. Machines beeped in steady intervals. A nurse checked my vitals, then gave a relieved smile. "You're awake? That's good. You scared us." "Did I pass out?" I croaked. "You went into full anaphylactic shock," she said. "You're lucky your coworkers acted fast." She hesitated. "And you have visitors." I expected Jason, maybe Lewis. But she opened the curtain, and a police officer stepped inside with a notebook. "Mr. Hale?" "Yes," I rasped. "I need to ask you a few questions," he said gently. "Your HR director contacted us. The restaurant provided its security footage. This involves potential criminal intent." My heart thudded once. Not from fear this time, but from something colder. He flipped a page. "We have surveillance showing a co-worker of yours entering the kitchen and handing over a container, labeled crushed roasted peanuts. The chef states she asked him to add it to your dish." I felt the world narrow into a single sharp point. "She said you were faking it," the officer added quietly. My breath caught, not from an allergic reaction, but from the sheer weight of those words. Megan had tried to prove a point, and I almost died. "They thought I was gone," I whispered, staring at the blanket over my legs. "I wasn't." The officer closed his notebook. "Mr. Hale, this is now an active investigation. I didn't know it yet, but that decision would cost them everything." When the officer left my room, the silence felt different than before. Not heavy, not frightening. Just clean. A space finally cleared of doubt. I lay there listening to the soft beep of the monitor, the sterile hum of the hospital ventilation, and for the first time in years, I felt something close to clarity. A few hours later, Lewis arrived. He didn't come in with the artificial sympathy some managers wear like a badge. No fake brightness, no soft tones meant to hide guilt or discomfort. He looked the way a man looks when he has spent an entire night doing paperwork no one should ever have to do. "Grant," he said, pulling a chair beside the bed, "how are you feeling?" "Like I swallowed a cactus," I rasped. He gave the faintest smile. "That means you're improving." "Good." Then he pulled a small folder from his bag, not thick, but heavy with intent, and placed it gently on my bedside table. "I want you to know," he began, "that from the moment you collapsed, everything became documented. Witness statements, security footage, kitchen logs, the chef's testimony, the manager's." He paused. "Yours will complete the file." I nodded, throat tight in a new way. "Megan?" I asked. Lewis exhaled slowly. "We sent her home with security last night. Effective immediately. She's suspended pending termination. The footage is damning." I stared at the ceiling, letting that sink in. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like confirmation, the universe finally agreeing with what I'd been trying to say for years. Lewis continued, hands clasped. "She tried to argue, claimed it was a prank, claimed she didn't know there were peanuts. She contradicted herself 5 times in 10 minutes. "Sounds like her," I whispered. "She also tried to blame the restaurant, the staff, even you." That sounded even more like her. He leaned back slightly. "But none of it matters. There's an active criminal investigation. The restaurant is cooperating. We're cooperating. This is not going away quietly." For the first time, I saw something in his expression. Not anger, not outrage. Something colder. Resolve. "She endangered your life," he said. "That won't be brushed under the rug. Not on my watch." I nodded again, slower this time. "Thank you." "You earned none of this," he said simply. "We'll make it right." The next day, Jason visited. He looked uncomfortable in the hospital chair, like it was too small for him, or like he didn't know whether he was supposed to sit forward or back. He finally settled on leaning his elbows on his knees. "You scared the hell out of us," he said. "Yeah," I replied softly. "I scared myself too." There was a pause, not awkward, just full. "She knew," he said quietly. I saw her face. She knew what she did. I know. Another silence. Then he shook his head sharply. You don't deserve that. Nobody does. I didn't answer. Some truths don't need responding. Before he left, he hesitated at the doorway. Just so you know, he added, people are talking. Not about you. About her. Nobody's buying her version. Good. For once, good. Megan didn't show up again. Not at the hospital. Not in texts. Not in emails. The only sign of her existence came 3 days later when the detective returned with an update. Ms. Lewis has retained an attorney, he told me. She's claiming she didn't know the mixture contained peanuts. I looked at him. Wasn't the container labeled? Yes, he said. Clear as day. That was the first time I actually felt something like a small, quiet spark inside me. Not gloating, not triumph. Just release. And the restaurant? I asked. They've provided full footage. You can see her handing the container to the chef. You can hear her say, he's faking it. That's going into evidence. My throat tightened in a different way. Will she be charged? I asked. He nodded. It's likely, at minimum, reckless endangerment, possibly aggravated assault depending on the prosecutor. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just breathed. Slow, steady, finally easy. When I got out of the hospital, the world felt different, sharper, quieter. HR arranged for me to work from home during recovery. The CEO sent an apology letter. The restaurant comped my medical bills and added mandatory allergy training. But the biggest shift came from the team. People spoke to me differently, not with pity, with respect, like they were seeing me clearly for the first time. On my first day back in the office, Jason rolled his chair toward mine. Coffee? He asked. I nodded. He handed me a cup with a sleeve on it that read, No nuts. Double-checked. I didn't ask him to do it. He just did. Sometimes healing starts in small ways. As for Megan, her termination went through officially 2 weeks after the incident. She didn't fight it. She didn't show up for her exit interview. She didn't collect her things. HR boxed them and gave them to a courier. Rumors swirled, as they always do, that she tried to blame stress, that she tried to claim she was just joking, that her lawyer told her the footage was indefensible, that she cried in the parking lot. I didn't care. Her story wasn't mine anymore. The last update I got about her came months later. She'd moved out of state while still waiting for her court date. No one heard from her again. Choices have invoices. She got hers. And me? I got something I didn't expect. Peace. Not dramatic peace. Not cinematic peace. Just the quiet kind you feel when you finally put down a weight you carried too long. I went back to cooking my own meals. I trusted my routines again. I stopped flinching every time someone set a dish in front of me. One night, months later, I stood in my kitchen stirring a pot of soup, tasting it carefully. My soup, my ingredients, my hands, my rules. The smell rose up warm and familiar. No fear, no second guessing, no voice mocking me across a table. Just me, alive, safe, here. People think justice is loud. But sometimes justice is a quiet house, a warm meal, and a life that didn't end the night someone tried to prove you were lying. I don't need revenge stories. I don't need apologies. I just need the truth. And the truth is simple. I survived. She didn't, not the way she meant to. And that's enough.